No, I'm really serious. I think that's a good idea.
Just talking? Well, what's the show about?
It's about nothing.
No story?
No, forget the story.
You gotta have a story.
Who says you gotta have a story?
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. Some men just want to watch the world go.
Instead, only try to realize the truth. There is no spoon.
There is no spoon.
I'll tell you what it's worth. Not a damn thing. It's a waste of time.
Welcome to Frivolous Fandom with Mike and Kev. I'm Mike.
I'm Kev.
Let's get into some nerd stuff. This week we got a good guest of ours. Or a good friend, rather. Who is a guest?
Big Kev.
Big Kev.
Okay, so that way we won't get confused.
So we have a large Kev and we have a medium-sized Kev. Because he's not a little Kev.
So for the rest of this cast, Mike, if you're talking to me, call me MK. We'll call Big Kev
BK.
BK. Hopefully that'll be less confusing than, hey Kev, what do you think about this, Kev? Oh yeah, Kev, what do you like, Kev? I'm Kev. And then, so we'll get into it. So this week we're going to talk about something that we all love. A little bit of video games.
MOBA!
A little bit of MOBA games. And everyone's favorite is, clearly,
The legendary
Ligu of
Legendu.
Big Kev, tell us a little bit about yourself. You ever play League of Legends?
I've played quite a bit of League of Legends, actually.
Should we go and waste them all and find out just how much? Or
we can find out that I spent about 76 days of my life.
Hey, that's not enough, okay? That's why you're not diamond rank yet. No, yeah, so Big Kev, you got a little bit of experience, and what is it about League of Legends that you enjoy? And maybe, I guess, about the MOBA genre in general. What do you think people enjoy about it?
Well, I mean, the competitive scene really is the big part of it.
Kind of what drives it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even when I'm not playing it a lot, I still watch. I kind of keep up with the LCS stuff, which is the League Championship
Yeah, all the
Series.
pros that play and stuff.
Right.
Well, it's one of the first gaming types where, FPSs are just too, cut and dry. And then StarCraft stuff, it's one-on-one.
Too much.
Yeah, it's just micromanaging, and you're like, my brain.
Well, yeah.
You just can't beat Koreans.
Right, yeah. You can't beat guys with, supersonic reflexes that can literally do 300 actions per minute, and you're, struggling to get, 60. And, that's kind of what killed StarCraft for me. I really enjoyed StarCraft 2 when it came out. I was really into StarCraft 2. I played it all the time, and I was pretty good at it for a normal person. And then I took, a year off just because, life and whatnot.
Never catch up.
And I tried going back to it, and I played for, a week without ever winning a single game. I was like,
It's almost a job in and of itself.
Yeah, it really is. You have to work out for it. You can't lose even an inch of muscle memory. Mm-hmm. Which, to an extent, there's a little bit out of the league in terms of kind of being comfortable with it and getting that muscle memory back, But
most of it's really just your kind of secondary. It's like awareness for several things.
Oh yeah, it becomes instinct after you play it enough. And I do it's clearly the friend aspect and also the free to play, obviously, because
that's awesome.
Not everyone's gonna want to go buy a $60 game, but if you just tell somebody, oh, you should just download this game for free and try it, very few people are like, no, man, I'm not gonna do that. Especially when it's the one game where, if I get on just a generic afternoon and just hit up some friends online, just be like, you want to play something? Everyone's going to be like, okay, we can just play League since we all have that game.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much free-to-play is probably going to be the way to go from now on for most games.
Yeah.
There are a few where a free-to-play setting will actually screw up the game, but it's not very often.
Right. Because, that's true. Not every game type's going to have, that skin thing going. Not every
every AAA company is going to try to do the whole pay-to-win setup.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest.
No. Right. And so, the free-to-play has gotten everybody into it. It's clearly the most popular game in the world at this point. I think, usually when you go on Twitch.tv, which is the video game streaming website, let's face it, everybody who listens to this has been on it.
Yep.
Usually it's League of Legends, World of Warcraft usually has a lot. What are some other ones? There's a couple games. StarCraft has a lot. There's several games that have a lot, but League literally has 3 times as much.
Yeah, there's always pros playing and all that other stuff.
Well, because it's changing. It's inherently different than other games. Like, StarCraft changes with every expansion, and there's a couple of tweaks here and there.
Right.
But the League developers are like, all right, this season, we're flipping stuff on its head.
Right.
Like, and so the instincts and the awareness that you work so hard to get no longer apply.
Or sometimes they do. They just
Well,
change
yeah, so I
someone
wouldn't
else's
say-
role, which affects what you have to do.
Right.
in your-
Yeah. I wouldn't say it like totally changes it, but it's like, yeah, it is an adjustment, which is good because that's something with StarCraft is there's only 3 races and it's super balanced and like everything is good, but that means it gets down to a science, which is just like literally every game is pretty much the same. It's just like the person with the fastest reflexes or who can micromanage and multitask the best always wins.
And since it's a science, a lot of people have specific builds that they do, in which case, if you know that build that they're going to do, you can just counter
it,
whatever
right.
else.
It's like a really super in-depth game of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, and I mean, and it is really cool. It's really interesting, but I just feel like to the average player, it's not going to appeal to them at all. And that's where LoL comes in.
Yeah,
because like
LoL's accessible.
Yeah, it's accessible. There's like 100 some odd different champions at this point that you could play. So you just have to like literally, if you're not really into these kind of things, all you do is find one champ that you like and just learn to play that one. And then like at least when your friends are all playing and like you want to play, you just be like, okay, you play. You know what I mean? Whereas like StarCraft, you're like, yeah, I don't have 100 hours to dedicate to learning the specific build orders of like Terran or whatever it is. And so naturally, with this many people going to League, I don't know how much money the pro scene makes, but I think it's starting to get pretty lucrative. I mean, not compared to like NBA, NFL type stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, for considering they're playing video games. Like,
Well, anybody that can make a. I mean, are they to 3 figures? I don't think they're 3 figures. 2 figures a year. Maybe 3.
I don't know. I think it probably depends. For the average player, probably not. But if you win, like the top teams probably make 3 figures. Yeah.
That's
they gotta go.
That's a big step. And
Because I don't remember, it was in the millions. The prize pot for LCS last year. It was in the millions. I'm pretty sure.
I didn't hear about the reward, so I have no idea.
I might be
what
wrong
it
about
was.
that.
That's insane.
But yeah, just imagine making that much money for watching a game, for playing a game. But I mean, they sold out. It was at Staples Center, and they sold out within like, I thought it was like 10 minutes or something like that. Of putting the tickets online.
Well, because this is the
so
first
I mean, that's
time
20,000-ish people
like that
watching all in one stadium to watch a video game, and then they had in the millions on the stream watching it around the world.
Well, and this can be a really global event. Like, and I mean, the only thing that I think, aside from like say soccer or football, for those of you outside of the States, that can really just anybody on the planet with a computer can kind of get into this. I feel like.
Yeah, it's true. Because I mean, if you look at it, you have Korean teams, you have Chinese teams, you have Japanese. Yeah, you have European. You have teams from France and Germany, and North America. Like it's one of the few.
As much as we hate the Brazilians we play with. Brazil.
Right. It's one of the few, let's just call it a sport for the sake of it for now.
Yeah,
it's one of the few sports kind of bridging the whole earth right now.
There are a dozen things that should not be considered sports that the mainstream
curling,
zeitgeist decides is sports. So no,
right.
I will give it to this
NASCAR.
one. Yeah.
NASCAR is competitive and very
I wasn't
difficult.
going to say NASCAR, but...
I'd probably offend a ton of people because I've had this argument a million times. I'm like, I don't think a NASCAR athlete will call it...
What's a category thing for you?
Yeah, it's a category thing. I'm like, I don't think a NASCAR person is any less talented than maybe like the NBA guy or whatever, but I just don't consider it a sport. You know what I mean?
Well, I see, like, there one person was trying to... was
I mean, but then again, if I'm going to say that, then League isn't a sport, but it's an e-sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, someone's like...
So e-sport is different.
Wrestling and boxing and MMA aren't sports. I'm like... And then Aaron Myers is like, no, they're combat. I'm like, fair enough. Okay, that's a category.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, do you consider sport as something... Is competitiveness, or the competition, what categorizes a sport, or is it the inherent athletic nature of it, where you have to be moving to do it?
If we want NASCAR to be a sport, we'll give them lances and do NASCAR jousting.
Oh boy. That might be bad. Hey, how big are the lances?
Hey, here's the deal. You don't
tear your arm off if you're going like 200 miles an hour. The lance out the window.
Dude, we'll just give them.
Or you just attach it to the side.
We'll give them pool noodles. How about that?
that would still kill you.
That would hurt at that speed. Yeah. Assuming you could still hold on to it.
Just on shit.
Your arm would be dislocated from the resistance.
That's your new noodle.
But I think the funny thing with League is it's like the one game where you build personal relationships. It's not a personal relationship, but you know how with athletes, there's certain athletes that's my favorite player. You know what I mean? And you watch a biography on him. I don't know if we're quite there yet with League people, but because every League guy now streams on his own and just you hear them talking to you, you build a following with the players themselves, which is fun in and of itself because sometimes there's teams I don't like, but there's players on the teams I don't like. So then I'll end up watching a game of that team just to see how that player does. Like, kind of that kind of a thing.
Well, it's one of the few... It really is kind of like a sport because the character is an avatar. There's objectives that you need to get done. There's interaction there's teamwork, and not just like, with a first-person shooter, it always devolves into who's got the cheapest tactic.
Yeah.
That's it. And who's got fastest reflexes.
Right.
Reflexes are a part of it, but you can be a very good technical player, and if you have no sense of teamwork, you're going to get eaten alive.
Well, I mean, this is... You don't have to be into the scene, I guess, to understand this, but like Fnatic, like the top European team, like their whole thing is they're the best at team fights, which is all reflexes, because like, especially in the pros, they're so good at like countering and flashing out and like reacting, that usually the team with the better reflexes wins the team fight, but they lost to Najin Black Sword, which I forget if they're from Japan or where, but they lost to them.
Objective team, right?
They were an objective team. They had like, not quite double the kills, but they had like at least 1.5 times the kills of Najin Black Sword and lost the series because that team like strategically was so good at playing the map and sort of like coordinating their movements. Yeah. So it was like...
Well, a lot of it comes down to, are you willing to do... Because, I mean, at least for casual players, like, you get someone who's getting their butt kicked.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to just sit back and do the boring thing.
And that's a really common mistake for new players, is that sometimes the way the game plays, I mean, they're expected to go about 40 minutes. And sometimes if you get to a bad start in the first 5, it's like the next 10 to 15 minutes you need to just play patient and not worry. Like, if you're not killing anybody, like, it's fine. It might actually even be good if you're not killing anybody, because a lot of players are just like, I'll get my revenge, and they just make it worse and worse.
They just keep digging.
And
digging a hole.
Yeah. Sometimes when you dig a hole, the only way out is to keep digging. You know what I'm saying? You dig your way out of it. But,
yeah, China's not at the end of that hole. It's the Earth's molten core, which is what happens.
Right. I mean, and that's another thing I think sets it above like an FPS game. I mean, everyone's gonna be like, what about this one obscure indie game FPS that's probably really great? But like, for the most part, FPS is like, don't have the extra layer strategy. It's pretty much run and kill people at all times.
Throw grenades at the beginning of the game towards where they're going to be running. Learn trigger points, learn camp points. Like, and that's the thing. Even like if you watch competitive FPS, it's mobile camping. You find a position, you sit there for like 30 seconds, and you run to your next one. And it's just... It
doesn't like bring the game to a halt, but it's still kind of slow and tedious. And I mean, I guess there are tedious points in League, but it's just got a lot of depth to it. There's a lot, and it's what keeps people playing. I mean, we've been playing it for like 3 years. We're decided 3 to 4 years, and I eventually the scene will probably die out a little bit whenever the next big thing comes along. But it's been going for 2 to 3 years, and it's only getting bigger. So
honestly, the fact that this game popped up on the scene 3 years ago, and then has stayed strong for 3.5 years.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
I mean, it's exponentially growing, and even StarCraft's fallen off.
Yeah.
And StarCraft had a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't foresee it closing anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I don't either. And, because of the sales and the merchandise and everything, just the popularity of it, naturally, the companies, once they start to see green, are going to try to emulate and knock it off and grab their little piece of that pie. And so, disappointedly, we're starting to see a string of knockoffs that are ultimately the exact same game. They're all free to play, and they're all trying to make money the same way with the skins and the experience boosts, the 3-day experience boosts you buy, things like that. And they're not really doing anything other than leeching off of League.
Oh yeah, they haven't made anything like the things that set them apart from League are detracting from the experience, not helping.
Right.
And I don't know. We've got 2 pretty good examples. The first of which is...
Yeah, Big Kev, tell us about the first one we're going with here.
So we've been saying a lot about StarCraft. So Blizzard has been coming out with their own MOBA called Heroes of the Storm. I haven't been looking too much into it. It's supposedly supposed to be a free, I guess.
Yeah, for some reason I can't find it on their website right now, but I'm about positive that it is going to be free.
But so they basically have the same kind of setup. They have assassins, they have these tanks, but instead of you buying items, you have your 4 abilities played out from the start, and you level up, but instead of items, you have traits. Basically, I guess, from what I saw from a video I was watching, certain traits will increase a certain ability, so if there's one you like, you can just put a point into that. I mean, I haven't taken too much of a look into Heroes of the Storm.
So it's like, instead of building, like, a shield or some piece of armor item or something. That's just how you level it up.
Yeah, how you level up your ability and whatnot.
Right, and it looks like I guess they're trying to do a couple little different things. Looks like there's unique mercenaries you can hire. So instead of just like in League of Legends, you just have your standard minions, and then I guess once you take the inhibitor, the super minions. But it looks like maybe they're trying to add a little bit of more strategy to it. They have like 3 different game modes that are actually not very like League at all. I guess there's one where there's like I don't know if he's a pirate or a warlord or something like that. You have to gather up the gold to pay him, and if you get enough gold, he ends up fighting for you, and like he's like a super tough boss, and like you can basically win the game just by having him go and fight their enemy team for you. Right. So, I mean, is there really anything though that has caught your eye in terms of like this is fresh and I need to like this would motivate me to play it? Well, I mean, one obvious thing is that it's characters from a lot of the games you like StarCraft. Right. Diablo, not so much. I mean, it has some of the iconic characters, but it seems they're going more with the characters that you play with. The roles. Yeah. Yeah. And, it does have a little bit of that going for it. I mean, that is... Because from what I've seen in the gameplay, I wasn't, ecstatic with it. The only reason that I would be motivated to play it is because I can play, Zeratul from StarCraft, or I can play... Diablo. Yeah, Diablo, or Tyrael from the Diablo games, and just certain characters that I really like. From what I've seen though, I'm not sure it's going to be enough to motivate me to leave League in terms of I put so many hours in a League. I think it'll definitely be an interesting play. Right. But not enough that you're going to spend as many hours as you put into League.
See, they may have a de facto nice little burst just because Blizzard has a real cult following. I don't know. It's a cult. Massive. Yeah. Well, yeah, cult-like fanaticism, but on a huge scale. Right. Inquisition. They have an Inquisition, but they this is gonna be big at BlizzCon, and all the World of Warcraft people it's free, right? And they're willing to pay to play WoW this entire time. So obviously, free is cheap. Quick little nugget, I guess. I'll cut Blizzard some slack, because if anybody deserved to rip off the MOBA genre from League, it is them, considering that I guess League, the only reason League exists is because it started out as a mod of Warcraft 3. Now, I don't know the whole history behind it. I'm pretty sure the people that made League worked for Blizzard and left to start Riot. Or something along those lines. There was the mod for Dota 2, or for Dota, and then that kind of took off, and Blizzard was like, okay, whatever.
Defense of the Ancients came from Warcraft 3, right. And then Blizzard didn't really start exerting its intellectual property rights until they started seeing it gain momentum. Right. And so the people at Riot, I don't believe they did work. A couple of them did work for Blizzard, but most of them were just independent modders. Right. And they're like, you know what? We can make a game for this. So they went off and they did their own thing. Right. Blizzard very unintelligently dismissed this. I just feel like before this was such a phenomenon that it became, I think Blizzard could have bought them out. Well, they made them offers too. Sizable contract. Oh, Blizzard did make them offers. No. The Riot tried to pitch to them. Oh, to Blizzard, their predecessors. Yeah. Yeah, I bet you Blizzard's kicking themselves. Well, literally, Riot's only game is League of Legends. Like, if you go to their website, they have a thing that says games, and you go to it, and all that's under is League of Legends. Right. Well, I mean, they're gotta be making so much money off of this that they'd be foolish to why even do anything else right now until this loses steam. I mean, it's still going up. It's still an expansion right now. Well, technically, you want to do it before you start losing steam so that you have something to pick up if you need it. But they're not losing it. But yeah, they're not losing steam just yet. Well, and it takes a lot of actual upkeep for that. That's one thing I gotta give Riot. An issue happens. Yeah, it's usually a day. We all complain because we're used to it. Well, because we're way too... what's I'm looking for? Impatient? No, we're not patient. We're too... That's just impatient. Yeah, he said impatient. Oh, impatient? Yeah. Impatient. No, we're impatient. There's a word for it. The Untitled. We're I want to play this game right now. This game actually beams from the sky into my computer all the time, and it's perfect, and I play it. Yeah, you feel entitled, but I mean, some people think just because, you can pay for all that free stuff and everything, but it is still a free game, so technically you don't have to pay for it, and with that, they don't have to keep up too much. Yeah, right. It's we didn't have to give you this game. So. All the money you give them is literally on your own volition. So. Right. I'm pretty sure Heroes of the Storm is free to play, so if it is, I'll check it out. Give it undoubtedly. But, I mean,
if this was like 4 years ago and you told me Blizzard was making MOBA, I'd say it's going to be the best game ever. But post Diablo 3 and sort of StarCraft 2 expansions, I mean, they make great games, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like they're not quite like the cream of the crop anymore, necessarily. I mean, we'll see. They'll probably come out with the next game.
And that becomes a question of what, and actually, again, we're going to shout out extra credits because they have several segments on what we're talking about.
Right.
Be it MOBA, free-to-play, or corporate gaming. I wonder sometimes if the profit margin by nature, it dilutes the gaming quality. Because as soon as somebody gets really, really big, their next games just never have it.
Well, I mean, money is always going to get in the way, because, I mean, I don't know a whole lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, but it just seems like ever since Blizzard got purchased by Activision, a lot of their stuff seems motivated by money. I mean, why else would you break StarCraft 2 into 3 expansions? Mm-hmm. It's because they figured, how can we milk this?
And each one is going to cost you $40 to buy, so...
Well, and that's why this is... free-to-play is actually a really good coup de grace to that style of gaming for gamers. Because every Yutz out there is willing to buy... And we've already hashed on this, but every Yutz out there is willing to buy next year's expansion of COD.
Right.
Or Madden.
It's a good way to put it, expansion. It's not its own game. It's just an expansion of what went before it. And I mean, like for StarCraft 2, those are things... I mean, I feel like that could have been downloadable content. So I'm fine. If they didn't want to release all the campaigns at the same time, why not just make it a $10 download? Or just like... You know what I mean?
Well, because and they're going to come back with saying, well, we've got this huge expansion we need to pay our employers. Yeah, but don't pretend like you guys aren't definitely in the black with all the merchandising. You're Blizzard. Look at BlizzCon. Yeah. It's as popular, if not more popular, than some Comic Cons around the country. Yeah. So it's as large as PAX.
It's an extravaganza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So don't tell me you guys don't have the funds to, right. And what it is it's money, because money drives all this stuff.
I mean, they've sort of done the Apple thing. It's kind of like, was I talking to you, Big Kev? I forget. I was telling somebody I'd never buy a Mac because you pay $2,000 and that's fine and dandy for your Mac, but then you have to buy Apple specific accessories because they've designed it
just to get to work with stuff.
Yeah. The normal accessories that you could buy for any computer don't work with Macs because they want you to buy the Apple brand. Well, HDMI or they don't have HDMI because they're stupid. Whatever it would be.
Well, and Apple used to have products like if you bought a good MacBook, it was going to last you 10 years.
Right.
But that's not enough anymore because now, I mean...
Well, I mean, if an item lasts 10 years, you're not going to be buying one for that amount of time. So that's losing them money.
Exactly.
Right?
So they're like, okay, well, we got to...
Yeah, it's like planned obsolescence. That's a big thing.
That could be a whole other conversation in
itself.
Right.
3 iPhones in a row, top button jammed, right as the warranty ended. Not going anywhere. Anyways.
Right. And I feel like Blizzard's the same deal, where it's like, is it worth $40 to buy the... expansion we should have just get made as part of the total package? No, but we're Blizzard and you guys love us and you're going to deal with it. And
that's the truth.
I bought the last expansion for StarCraft, so I guess I'm a part of the problem, but it's just a little bit frustrating, Yeah. So we'll see. I don't see enough with Heroes of the Storm to say it's not just a knockoff. So, we'll move on from there.
It's a cash-in attempt. We can give it that.
Right.
And they are...
by Blizzard standards, but holding them to their own high standards, like, it's a cash grab for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, to be fair, Blizzard does have the right to go after this because blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I'll give them a little bit of slack for the game wouldn't exist if not, it didn't evolve from there from Warcraft 3, but...
Yeah.
At the same time, it's Blizzard. They expect better of them. Mm-hmm. So, moving on, Big Kev, tell us about the next LOL knockoff.
The next LOL knockoff we have is called Infinite Crisis. It's a DC MOBA in which it's very much like, if you've ever played League, you know about Dominion. They have at least one map that's very much like Dominion, and you have to capture points by standing on it.
It's identical.
Yeah, it's very identical. The items are quite a bit different. Champions are, of course, the DC heroes. But they have very different versions. Like, I'm not very big into DC Universe. I mean, I know about Batman and all that stuff, but I don't know.
They pulled obscure people.
Yeah, but they also have, like, they have Gaslight Batman. It's like, I've never heard of Gaslight Batman. And it's just, the way they did it, like, it's kind of cool to play. I played it a little bit, but it's definitely not one that I would suggest to play. It's just kind of there.
Right.
When I was finished, I want to play Dominion.
Right. I don't know. Was that the main mode? That's the one I played.
I mean, it's only. I think it's now in beta. Maybe it's still in alpha. When I played it.
Right,
so.
Right.
It's
been a little while.
Yeah, they only had basically 2 maps or something like that when I played, and there was basically that. So.
Yeah, and it's like from my experience, it's just so similar. I mean, obviously the items maybe like were tiered a little different. Like it's a little bit different how you build items, but at the end of the day, it felt so similar. Of 5-on-5, running around, getting kills, getting gold, killing minions. There were no phases.
Gold. It was just jump in.
Yeah, the game was quick,
and I mean.
It seemed like, sorry to cut you off,
no,
it seemed like they said, what's the main problem? The League takes too long. Okay, let's make a shorter version, and that was like literally their differentiating factor.
And I didn't like it. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't, it just, I do like the stages, the build-up, because it builds in some organization. It's chaos.
Right.
And that's the thing, you get paired with a couple of, I mean, at least when I'm playing with pubs in League,
right,
there's a structure built in.
Yeah.
You know what? Even if they're morons, 80 carries going bot, top's going top, we're good. I mean, with a few exceptions.
Except when 4 people pick 80 carries. And,
well, yeah, but that's the exception.
Yeah,
and then someone gets butthurt because they didn't get their role, and so they just troll you. And
yeah, right.
Then it's a fun time.
I'm going to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes just ruining your time rather than just having as good of a time as I could have.
Welcome to the internet.
Yeah, true, yeah. What else would 90% of the world do with the internet if we couldn't troll?
Yeah. But rather when I played, because one of our buddies like kind of dragged me kicking and screaming to try it out, and I downloaded and playing it, and he's like, yeah, isn't this great? I'm like, no, this is complete. I don't know.
Feels derivative.
Yeah, and I like this. No idea what's going on, how I can do stuff, and I have someone who's been playing this from the get go explaining it to me, and I still don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different learning curve. So.
Well, I don't know because maybe Batman's just a really strong hero in that game, but I played it once with Nick, and he just told me what items to buy. And I went 10-1 and 8 or something like that. And Nick was equal, so I was like, I don't know.
The people playing may not be very good either. So.
I mean, but that was like, yeah, true. I don't think anybody knew what was happening, but it's like, if I don't know what's happening, and I can still do that well, just because I was using my League reflexes, that's literally all I did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they do transfer over because it's still the same type of game.
Right. It's just, I don't know, it just felt like something where, unless you were huge into the DC universe...
I am, and it's...
right, because, I mean, it's got the same thing going for it as... Blizzard, where it's like, okay, I know these characters to an extent, like Gaslight Batman and weird Green Lanterns and stuff, yeah, I don't know, but it just isn't enough, I feel.
Well, the problem is...
Not when League has this clench on the market like it does, and it's been there, it's the name.
Yeah.
So...
Well, it created its own group of people. So I mean, the problem I had from a DC comic fan perspective is that I'm watching Harley Quinn punch Superman and him taking damage.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And that's a nitpick.
That's pretty nitpicky. I'll give you it. It's pretty nitpicky.
Yeah.
If I didn't know there were fans way worse than you out there, I would give you that nitpick. But yeah.
I'm not salty
Harley
about
Quinn
it.
shouldn't flip kick Superman to death. It just shouldn't happen.
No. But we have an alternative.
Yeah, we have an alternative in mind. I gripe about the knockoffs, but at the same time I understand them.
Mm.
And, so we got to thinking about what kind of a knockoff of League would we like to see. What is one that could maybe actually motivate you to play it instead of League, even if it is like a derivative from League?
And hopefully put enough of a spin on it that it's actually very different from League in itself.
Well, what property lends itself to this kind of...
Well, but, real quick, the one thing I will say is if you look at Heroes of the Storm and Infinite Crisis, it's all a lot of sort of aesthetic differences. Like, Heroes of the Storm, it's like you can go hire mercenaries that are different from the regular minions, but at the end of the day, they're just going to run at the other team's base the same, and maybe they do, like, more magic damage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanics were almost identical looking, in my opinion, in terms of their slow stuns, all that looked pretty much the same. So can we differentiate it not only based on the aesthetics of it and maybe some minor map differences kind of a thing, and like really alter it so it has sort of some...
Well, it needs its own paradigm.
Right.
Like, you're not worried about, okay, we're going to gank him.
Right.
We're going to get this tower. There has to be additional factors to really shift the game's experience to make it distinct.
Right, because I mean, I to basically make it so you have to work a different skill set. Because like I'm saying, there might be some different strategies with Infinite Crisis, but the skill set was so similar that I was able to go play it right away and be fine. So maybe can we differentiate the mechanics enough that it has its own, just sort of paradigm is a good word for it. I only know what that is because of Final Fantasy 13. What was it called to that? Paradigm shift.
Yeah.
So basically, its own set of rules that you have to, learn, and there's depth to it, and there's like a skill curve to it. So, Mike, what were you saying?
So basically, what I figured, we might as well just reveal what
Okay, yeah. So looking at what kind of universe would lend itself to this kind of a game, we figured why not make a Super Smash Brothers MOBA? Because A, the Nintendo characters are easily some of the best. B, Super Smash Brothers, the fighting game, is just the best.
Well, Nintendo's already done something like this. It's already managed to cobble together, just for funsies matchup for kids.
Right.
It's grown on us. How many of us dorks still play Super Smash?
That's a funny thing to bring up because I hadn't played Smash Brothers since high school. Because whenever Smash Brothers Brawl came out, we played a lot of Smash Brothers. But that was in high school, so I would say the past 3 to 4 years, I hadn't hardly played any Smash Brothers.
Haven't touched it almost.
Then one of our friends went and bought a game. He got a GameCube or found his GameCube, one of the two, and he was like, "You want to come over and play some Melee?" And so then we started playing Melee, and we're like loving it. And then all of a sudden, every other weekend or so, we were playing it. And then we found out about Project M, which is a mod of Brawl that brings in some new characters and stuff, and just made it feel a little bit fresher. So then we've been playing it for now the past 3 or 4 months. Relatively every time we have a group together, and it's been a blast. Like, I'm not tired of it yet. And it just sort of shows it's that classic. It has that classic game. Like, no other fighting game is really like it other than PlayStation All-Stars, which...
Tanked.
Yeah,
blatant.
Right. I mean, I'm sure it had its own flair and stuff and different little things about it, but nothing can compare. And honestly, you take all of the rosters from, like, all the franchises... And Nintendo has, like, the coolest one. Mm-hmm. Because every person grew up playing at least one of those games, like Kirby or Donkey Kong,
nostalgia
Mario. Oh, yeah. Hardcore nostalgia. More so than Blizzard, even though Blizzard has a lot with StarCraft and Warcraft. But
StarCraft was never character-driven.
Yeah.
I feel like I can say that. It was mostly... Diablo, possibly. I didn't really get into Diablo.
Well, StarCraft, at least for for the StarCraft 2, it went more to the character and story-driven. Like, you found out about Raynor, you had Kerrigan, all these characters that were main, like... I mean...
They had a lot of missions where you controlled just one guy.
Yeah, it was just about a character, but that was just recently with the StarCraft 2 and everything universe.
Right.
With the old StarCraft regular universe, like, the characters were there, and it was basically about them, but it was more for the bigger picture of, like, the war and everything like that.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and, the way... the stereotype of it that's pretty true is other than, like, teenage to young adult males... They're not gonna like. Other than that, not many people have that nostalgia for Blizzard. Whereas like Nintendo has like always made the games that you bring your family around at like the holidays and just like when Wii came out,
we would like to play.
Yeah, we like to play. It brings Japanese people and my family together. When the Japanese guys dropped off the Wii at my front door and came in and showed us how it worked. I mean, that was a really big selling point for me. It was the Japanese guys that you got with your Wii that would show you how to play the game.
For designing the thing, they were really bad at Wii bowling.
Yeah, right.
Kicked our butts at tennis. Kicked their butts at tennis.
Right, because they had the reflexes for the tennis. I don't know where I was going with that. None of that happened. That was wasn't that a commercial for us? Is that what
yeah, it was a commercial. Yeah. Like they would literally come to your door with the Wii, and then they would bow to them. They'd be like, "We would like to play."
Right. I mean, like that's not.
And then, of course, they do your.
It's not racist. It's not racist. It's the Japanese company.
Funded it. Yeah. But yeah, like Nintendo's always been in games like Mario Party, like all these games, Mario Kart. What other Smash Bros.
They got Fire Emblem, and then now with a pretty big one, Bravely Default. I mean, it was put on. It's by Square Enix, which is more of a Sony player, but for some reason they put it on Nintendo.
Well, funny thing about that is like Final Fantasy started out on Nintendo, I mean, imagine that. Wouldn't it be sweet? Like, if they don't have the rights anymore, but how cool would that have been if, like, Nintendo
it was on the
kept
Game
it?
Boy and everything.
Right,
yeah,
it was on the Game Boy and the Nintendo. Like, if you could have had, like, Final Fantasy characters in it, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that would, okay, yeah. That's
Yeah, so, but it just really brings together a lot of people, and, you know, anybody can play it, any gender, pretty much any age, unless you're just an old grump who doesn't like video games. Like, we know a couple. It's just really accessible, I guess, is the best way to put it. And the other thing with Smash Brothers that League has is that League is really easy to get into. Like, somebody could show you how to play League for an hour, and from there you could play it. I mean, you wouldn't be very good, but at least you would feel comfortable playing it. Like StarCraft, complete
Well,
opposite.
you give them the 5 basic rules. Don't fight. Don't attack someone under their tower. Hang out. Don't try to get kills. Don't push your lane too hard.
Last hit minions.
Yeah. And then
And then give them a rough overview of, like, okay, these items build your magic damage. This champion that you like they scale off magic damage, so you need to build magic damage, or stuff like that.
And then finally learn how to gank with your jungle, because you
Right.
never ever give someone new.
Because, like, the recent thing they have is the bot games. I mean, if you just play bot games, you're never going to get into a really good competitive scene.
Right.
Because, honestly, AI
Bots
can
are
only
too
be so good.
predictable,
They're really predictable. They'll usually dive you under tower for some reason.
yeah.
But, I mean, that will get you into it, at least, and then you can start going past that. And also, another thing that was recent was the recommended items. So, like, if you're just starting out, you're not just like,
Well,
there's
this
a bunch
time
of...
the recommended items actually are the best, or the relative best.
Sometimes, every now and then.
Before they weren't.
Right. But at least if you really don't care about the strategy of building items, you can just start clicking. Like, you'll just click what's there, and you'll be decently built.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you're gonna hold your own, at least.
Yeah.
And so that's really what League has for it, and that has kind of an endless curve to where you can just keep getting better and better and better and better. Smash Bros. Is the same way, compared to like a Street Fighter game or some other really notable fighting games, that the learning curve starts way too high. I mean, even be able to combo in Street Fighter usually takes, like, I usually would have to take like a week or two of like playing with somebody who's really into it. I usually don't even get that far because people are over it by like the time they can't combo by an hour, you know? And so the thing with Smash Bros. Is you could like hand somebody, okay, your B are your special attacks, you push a direction, they do a different kind of attack, and your A are your normal attacks.
Or you can C-stick to be cheap.
Yeah, C-stick if you're a punk. But
Cough.
Z grabs and, L2 blocks. Like, you could tell them that and start playing and just have a blast. And they, like, at first, it seems really superficial, like, and easy. But now that we've been, like, really getting into it for the past couple months and, like, learning the mechanics of juggling and, edge hogging and stuff like that, it's almost an endless skill curve to Smash Bros. As well. And you go watch the pros, and you'll think you're watching a different game. I'm not even kidding. You'll be like, what? I didn't even know you could play this good. And so that's one of the biggest appeals for the Smash Bros. Fighting game, is that it's super accessible, but also, like, endless in terms of how good you are.
It's always been a staple for the pro gaming scene, if I remember correctly.
It's actually getting bigger now. It's never left. Like, it's always been there. There's always been a Smash Bros. Scene since, I don't know about 64 so much. I mean, I don't know if the competitive gaming scene was what it was today back then. But
couldn't have been. No,
couldn't have been, yeah. But pretty much since Melee on, there's always been a Smash Bros. Scene. But, like, lately, in terms of the past year, it's actually getting really popular. Last year was at EVO. I don't know if it had ever been at EVO. It might have been years ago, like, when it first came out. But it hadn't been at EVO in, like, 5 years. Right.
Maybe, yeah.
It had been a good 5 years, though, since it had been at EVO. And it came back, and it was actually, like, way more successful than they thought it'd be.
But this speaks to Nintendo's skill in actually crafting a game. Like, any game that you can re-pick up.
Right.
I mean, and that's the thing. Because, like, we've all had those games that we just really got into, and then we just never had the desire. Like the Lord of the Rings PlayStation games.
Right.
I loved those things.
Right. I've never
I have no inclination to pick it up again.
Right.
Or maybe, Sly Cooper I do, so that's a bad example. But
Jack and Daxter games, I love Jack and Daxter games. I probably won't ever play those again, just because, I don't know. They're whatever. They are what they are.
Yeah.
And,
well, partially the things I liked about Sly Cooper are concentrated and then sprinkled in with additional things and stuff like Fallout and Skyrim for me.
Right.
The sneaky deaky.
You find, the aspects of the game you can find in modern day games.
Yeah. But there is no real replacement until, aren't they making a new Smash?
Yeah, there's a new Smash coming out. It's for Wii U and the 3DS.
Right. Well, but I mean, I don't know when the first Smash Bros. came out. Was it like 2000?
It was
1998 or
so
so.
long ago.
It might have even been 90s. Yeah, we'll find out real quick. But you figure the first Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64 came out,
mid 90s or later 90s.
Later 90s, yeah, like a good 17, 18 years ago.
Honestly, it was probably mid 90s because I was still at my my aunt.
No, Mario, like I don't think the N64 came out till 96, and like it was a couple years later that Smash Bros. Came out. When did the first Smash Bros? Thank you, Google. Dude, what are you doing? It's not Smash Brothers. Smash Bros, bro. Wake up and smell the bros.
Wake up and
Yeah,
smell them.
1999.
99, okay.
99.
So it came out in the late 90s, but you figure that is 15 years now? No, pushing 16, whatever. And this is only going to be the 4th edition of the game. They only come out with the game when there's like new technology to justify it.
Fancy that! A game that only has 4 installments in a decade and then and 1.6 decades.
Yeah.
Doesn't suck.
Yeah, right.
Unlike
Cough, COD.
that
man.
comes out one with every year that literally doesn't change.
Well, and let's be fair and spread the love. Assassin's Creed's doing the same crap.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like, they don't come out with multiple games usually on the same system because there's no point. Like, they make such a sound game. Like, Smash Brothers for Melee was only one on the GameCube because it was so sound that, you know, they had to wait for better technology to really up the ante at all. And I respect that. And so I think that's why it's staying so strong. And that's why I have full expectations for this game. This is one of the few games, the new Smash Bros. For the Wii U, even though I don't have a Wii U.
No, this might get enough people off of our keisters in our age group to buy a Wii U just to get this game.
Yeah.
That's power right there.
Right. Because there's other games, like there's Pikmin, there's some other games that you really want but aren't enough to like make you go buy one.
Well, let's be honest though. Like, just like we were saying that Blizzard likes to go for the cash, Nintendo is also one that does go for the cash as well. They do release a lot of games that don't necessarily
Mario
get
Galaxy
much
2.
better. Yeah, they don't necessarily get better. They're just for cash.
Right.
Well, actually, there was a really interesting segment on Extra Credits which actually defended Mario Galaxy because, you know, it was going through the list of how gamers are like, why don't we have new and exciting games? It's like, well, they tried this and it didn't sell. But, yeah,
Mario Galaxy 2 it's like one of those things where it's a good game, but when you're like thinking of the traditional jump in Mario games, it wasn't that. You know what I mean? Like Mario 64, Sunshine, then the first Galaxy are like all crazy different. But so basically with making a Smash Bros. MOBA, we think it has the whole affection you have for the characters going for the nostalgia factor, but we also think we have a way to differentiate it from the League and the other MOBAs, and also find that balance of accessibility and skill level.
And also some familiarity.
Yeah, right, yeah. Just enough, because it's a MOBA, like you were saying, Big Kev. A MOBA's a MOBA. Certain things are going to carry over. But we we're looking at the game mechanics, and we think we've developed a way to differentiate enough that it has its own feel. And you're not, like, thinking the second you end it. Like, you play a game, the second's over, you're like, as League knockoff, let's go play League. We think we can separate it from that. So let's get into a little bit of the overall game mechanics that we were sort of brainstorming here for what we called it. Super Smash Brothers Stadium was what we're going to call it.
S3.
Yeah, Triple S, Super Smash Stadium, or SBS. We haven't decided. Super Smash Bros. Stadium, or just Smash Bros. Stadium. I don't know. There's a lot of options. We could have a whole podcast.
That's for marketing. Oh wait, you're
a business major, and naming this game, that's another podcast. So let's get into the game mechanics a little bit, guys. So the biggest thing that I wanted in this game was to carry over the because you know when you think about Smash Brothers, what is the number one thing you think about that makes it a different experience than other fighting games?
It's all about not falling off.
It's not health, it's a percentage.
It's a percentage, and it's about not falling off. Exactly. So my biggest thing was that percentage is sort of what will draw you in and make it feel like Smash Brothers. So I don't think that for this game to really be cool, you'd have to incorporate that into the mechanics of the MOBA and make that a major factor of it. So the way I kind of viewed this working was, you know, if you look at League of Legends, you have AP, ability power, or magic damage, and then you have AD, which is just physical attack damage, right? And those are your two different, what's the word I'm looking for?
Health bars, kind of?
Yeah, stats, the different things that make up your champion. And then you have to build defenses based off of those. So they scale differently. So it's like you have to build AP defense if the person has a lot of AP. and you have to build a lot of AD defense if the person's a really strong physical attack. So I think you could separate that in the MOBA, because the MOBA, you're not going to be just knocking them off the screen. That wouldn't make any sense. You can't just knock them off the screen in MOBA. It's not about lives.
It would be cool, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the way to try to make this make sense is I think you would have still your AD, you could keep that, your standard attack damage, and you would still get kills by lowering a health bar. Although they would have set HP.
Knowing Nintendo, they probably do fainting. Because if you notice, nobody
died.
Nobody got cut up in Smash Bros. They just fell off the side.
Right. They fell like, when you fall off Hyrule Temple, you fall down to a net that's invisible.
Or you're blasting off again.
Yeah, right. You land on the marshmallow planet, on a bed of marshmallows.
Or that angry moon.
And then it crashes into Earth, and that's how you get back. You hop off the moon, you're back on Earth. So yeah, you have your attack damage, and then you would have your percent-based damage instead of like an AP. And the percent-based damage wouldn't take away from your HP in any way.
But it would add to that little
All it would do is add to your percentage, and that would be what I would think of as the crowd control mechanic for this game. So I don't think you would necessarily have stuns. I don't think you'd either need slows even. Maybe.
Well, I mean, you might who's the character that can hit somebody into the ground?
That's
Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong. Like, you can have something like that.
That could be a stun, yeah. I suppose, yeah. But, then again, you could run with it where, like, Donkey Kong, he smashes the ground with his fists.
And, an
AoE, that's an AoE that adds percentage, and when they get hit with that, it pops them up. And they fly however far based on how much percentage they have built.
And if we wanted to be really, make it pretty technical, we could even have it to where you could, if you were skilled enough, control where they fly. So that'd be great.
So here, we'll get into that.
We'll get
into that. So, to make this sound fair, because I know what you're thinking, like, this just sounds like you could endlessly juggle them up and keep shooting them. Certain attacks are going to be percentage-based, and certain attacks will be damage-based. Like, they'll probably... How did you want to do it, Big Kev? We were talking about this.
Well, what I was saying was that, so each attack will do kind of both.
Right.
But, like, Donkey Kong, where he smashes you into the ground, it's not going to do so much damage as it is going to give you a big boost
percentage.
to your percent, because it's a big stun.
Okay.
And then, like, where you slap in the ground, that may be another one that just, maybe it's damage, maybe it's just percentage or something.
No, also, if one character is tilted towards percent versus damage, if the Fed, or I don't know how we do that whole thing, but if the powerful character, if the Fed character is all percentage, well, everyone just build percent defense.
Right.
Or versus AD.
Yeah, so exactly. So when it came to how you would build your characters, same thing. You could build percentage resistance, and you could build damage resistance. So that way, it's like you're not just building one or the other. And so, also, you could build into the characters, like a tanky character like Donkey Kong. You would cap the percentages, so like a light character like Pit or something would only be able to go up to, like, let's say 150%, whereas Donkey Kong could go up to like 300%.
Yeah.
And he also doesn't fly as far because that's the
because he's a
mechanics.
heavier character,
right? And that's how the mechanic works in the Smash Bros. Fighting game.
But your weight determines your speed.
Right?
So,
yeah, he's gonna be easier to hit. Exactly. So, and I liked Big Kev. Your idea was since both any attack will do a little bit of both. So if you auto attack them, it will add to the percentage.
But it just might not be very much.
Right. And then we were thinking you'd have to have an ability to pop them up, though, is what I say. Your abilities are what hits them up. And the first ability just hits them straight up. And then your second ability, if you can combo with another one, hits them a direction.
Yep.
And that would be super cool for ganks.
Oh god, pop up the carry, knock him clear into your team,
Exactly, yeah. What if, to bring this to League.
Basically, yeah, League, like Lee Sin, where, like, Lee Sin,
punt them.
you would queue into them or whatever, so you would go into them, and then you'd get behind them with, like, a flash or something.
Right.
And then use his ult to kick them back into your team.
Yeah, it would be like that. Exactly. Like, you would bump into, like, let's say an enemy jungler trying to steal your buff, and you outplay him, you pop him up, and you could hit him into the lane, and all of a sudden your guys are just like, oh, kill him. They just kill him for you.
Oh, hi, bang.
It'd be a really fun gank mechanic, and I think it would take a lot of skill in a way.
Or
too.
a good straight up, peeling. Or just straight up, okay, this guy's doing damage. Get him away. We need this
away
objective.
with him. Right, and, where was I going to go with that next? Let me check out our notes here. We've got a lot of notes. Certain items, like we were saying, would buff your percentage damage or your attack damage. Oh, this was a fun little thing, Mike. This was your idea. So talk them over, instead of buffs. Because in League of Legends, you run around, you take the big mobs and the jungles, the NPC, the non-player mobs, you get buffs. Mm-hmm. Mike, what was your idea?
Well, but we gotta make it super smashy.
Yeah.
So,
it's not smashy at all.
No, it's leaguey.
It's too leaguey.
Legendary. Or, whatever. So instead of buffs, NPCs will, they'll drop items. Just like our beloved games before them. Mushrooms, shell shields, shells, metal box, invulnerable star.
Sadly, they won't fall from the sky.
No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And, basically the way you could run with it is like, again, because we said it is a knockoff of League, so we're going to steal some ideas. So instead of like a blue buff, you would go and kill the Koopa or whatever it is in the jungle. And
giant Koopa.
Like, you could have a red and a blue, so you could have like a blue that's... And we want to make it slightly randomized. So if you kill the blue Koopa, he drops an item that you know is offensive in some way, right?
Yeah.
So that way, that's how you spread the love. So you could be like, oh, AD carry, come get this item because it's going to help you do damage or whatever it is. Or like, you could take the red buff and that drops something more defensive, like a shell shield more likely. And you have 3 shells that are spinning around you.
Yep.
That are acting as a shield for you as you go through the.
Yeah, you get the laser gun, and so now instead of your auto attack, you get a laser that does AP damage.
Right. And the way I was seeing this play out, if you have your 4 abilities, you could have a 5th key tied to an item box. So sort of like in Mario Kart, when you pick up an item and you choose when you use it, you pick up the item and you run over, and when you activate it, that's when the cooldown timer starts. And so you'd have like. And it would vary from item to item, but like, for instance, let's say you had, what would it be? Like an invulnerability star, let's just say. Which
you gotta hang on to that.
We'd have to figure out. But let's say it only lasts for 10 seconds, so it's like good for 1 gank. Like you have 1 tower dive to use this invulnerability star. You wait, and when you want it, you pop it, and then you have the 10-second timer pops up, and once that runs out, your item's gone.
I feel like 10 seconds is a bit long.
Okay,
but
5 seconds. Yeah,
but
5, whatever.
It's theory, so.
Right. And then, there's fun little things. Metal box could make you tankier, but slower.
So if you got a character that's been like you're squishy, you're duking it out. You're like, crap, I'm at 105. Press it. And so they're like, no, run away.
Well, just like in Smash, metal box makes you heavier, so it's also harder to hit you up into the air.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So your carry, you could pop that, and when they think they're going to be able to CC them, and they're just too heavy, like they don't fly like they think they're going to.
Yeah.
Mushrooms make you way beefier.
Well, what makes us different than League though is our unpredictability of this.
Right.
So if you get a banana.
It's not exactly going to be too helpful, but it could be.
Right, you'll get. It just depends. You could get a banana. Who knows? And that's why you'll separate it so you know your offensive versus the defensive at least. So it's not totally random.
Yeah.
So it's like if you need a defensive item or something, you will get it. It's just you might get something that
silly,
not really useful. Yeah.
And then my favorite would be the home run bat, the one-time use item. That does a lot of damage and just adds like maxes their percentage or something. I don't know.
Here's the thing: do we tell the other team that you have the items? I would think not, but that'll add a whole another layer.
That's true. You could just pop above their head that they have an item. It could be the mystery box, just like in a
Well, I think just like in League, you would see in their inventory. Like if you end up seeing them, you would see. Well, no, like when you pick up an item, you're going to see the item.
Oh, you do.
Just like you see the buff in League, you're going to see the item if you see them.
Right.
But if they come out of the jungle and you haven't seen them, and all of a sudden, home run bat.
Oh, they run out of the jungle and you're like, wait, let me check the item. And then you untab and you're dead. You're like, oh, I shouldn't have checked the item.
Which brings us to the fake box.
Yeah, the fake box. I don't know how we want this to work. Because, the way I see it is that you kill the Koopa and a box drops. And you have to run and right-click the box to get it. That way, that's how you leave it for people. Which is a fun mechanic. And then maybe you could drop fake boxes. Or maybe we could have like mini items even strewn across near objectives.
Or maybe one of the items is that the next item
is a fake box that just does damage, like a Teemo Shroom. That'd be messed up.
Well, like I was saying, like you could have it where you could have items in lanes, and that's actually an objective in your own lane.
In the lane, yeah.
Is you want to beat that person to the item.
Right.
Well, and you can even have if you're the jungler character, you can buy an item with special abilities. Like, okay, you can see if this box is BS or not.
Right.
And so it's like, oh crap, they gotta. Okay, well, nobody touch this one. Let it go away.
Right. And I know that a lot of people would hear the items and maybe be skeptical, and I get that because is, for our whole thing is it has to be fun, but it also has to have that competitive nature. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing with League is that it's so tight because they've been working on it so long. And, items may be a tough thing to balance, but I think you could balance it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think I think you can make it so items aren't game-breaking.
Yeah. Well, and also you could have it to where, like, the items themselves, like, if it's an item that pertains to that specific character, like a mushroom has a bonus for Mario.
Right.
Well, what if Mario's your bruiser or whatnot, and he's not jungling?
Right.
But is it better for you to have him run up and get it?
Right.
So you can do it?
Right.
And then the other, that actually just adds another dynamic.
Or like, what if you go to get the item and let them take a tower? Is like, that's your trade-off, and you don't get a good item. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So at that point, it really does actually, that in itself, the extingent factors are kind of working to balance them out. So, and then that comes back to the instincts. It's like, okay, well, crap, turret or mushroom. It could be that, guys, like, no, if I can get this mushroom, we can get 2 turrets with my buff.
Right.
Go.
Well, and thinking about it even now, you have those times in Smash Bros. You're like, you, me, Final Destination, no items. Let's go. I'm pissed. I'm salty. Like, that kind of thing. You could do that. If you're having, like, a scene ever built around this, you could just limit the items that drop. So no, like, hammers or just something stupid that's going to be a game breaker.
Yeah.
You could, you know what I mean?
And actually, that actually would be pretty interesting. You have,
Or you could go no items, I guess.
Well, you could.
Or you could just do hammers only.
That'd be cool. Each game mode, you could set the items.
Or, and you know what, like, just how League has banning characters, you could have banning characters and banning items. And
that'd be
if there's
cool.
ever competitive, they're like, oh, okay, he's really good with Mario, no mushrooms.
Of course, also for balance issues for the competitive actual game, like if you were going to do ranked or whatever, you would literally have just the set items that would be balanced. Like, you would have, like, whatever, the programmers that would know how to balance and whatnot.
Right. I mean, they could just make it so that, let's say, for the pros, they don't want character-specific items that would benefit a character.
Yep.
They could just make it so it reads all your picks at the end, and those items aren't in it. I don't know if that's what they'd want to do, but just for example, and right there, I feel like we've already built, if we could balance it, a game with more to it than League, to be honest.
Yeah. There's more factors.
And it's running with League, obviously. Like, I wouldn't say, like, we're
not redesigning the wheel here.
Yeah, no.
Right.
But we added cool spokes, and there's little green spikes on the tips. Now it can go up rocks.
And my favorite thing about it is that I feel like we are literally incorporating things from the Smash Bros. Fighting game into the MOBA in a way that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's not like...
Yeah.
And in a way that would make it unique and, like, familiar for people who aren't into MOBAs necessarily, but love Smash Bros. So much that maybe they try it, or, you know what I mean? That type of thing. So, we'll probably end up covering more mechanics, just sort of that we miss as we go. But for now, we're going to move more into the